America. It is Indigenous Peoples Day here in the United States of America. It's October 10th, 2022, and the new WCEG welcomes you. This program is Issues and Answers, and I am your host, Norman A. Carter Jr. Glad to be here. On your computer or smartphone, you can view or hear us by typing in WCEG talkradio.com in your browser and then hit the Enter tab. On the next screen, click the live stream tab and you'll be right with us. If you have a smart TV, just click on the YouTube icon and search for WCEG Network. Then all you have to do is look for Issues and Answers. That will be me. That will be us. WCEG stands for Worldwide Community Empowerment Group. Our programming goal is to leave you more informed and more empowered than you were when you tuned in. Our motto, we speak life into the community. Now, you can like us on Facebook and you can view us live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, and you can follow us on Twitter and on Instagram at WCEG _talk _radio and at WCEG Network. Now, let me tell you something, folks. The topics and opinions on Issues and Answers are those of moi, Norman A. Carter Jr., and my guest, and not the WCEG Network. So please leave my boss alone. This is my show. These are my words and the words of my guest. And I'd like for all of you to get your little pencils and papers ready, take notes, because we're providing information. We've got some website information, and I want you to take notes on these candidates because I want you to be an informed voter. Now, let me just tell you about this before I get into my guest, my great guest. Touch your neighbor and say, I will vote. Are you voting? Voter apathy is the one illness that's leading this country down a very dangerous road. I do not like to single out a specific party to criticize, but the fact is that the Republican Party nationwide is leading a campaign of voter suppression. We even have video evidence in Georgia of Republican operatives entering a polling location and illegally accessing voter data. We have a Republican-inspired insurrection on January 6, 2020. That was generated because of the Republican Party's failed attempt to throw out millions of votes for no other reason than their presidential candidate lost. For the rest of my life, I do not want to hear another idiot say votes don't matter. They do matter. If votes did not matter, there would not have been strange fruit hanging from poplar trees. If votes did not matter, Medgar Evers would not have been assassinated. If votes did not matter, the lives of voter poll workers would not be under threat this very day. Votes matter. Because I believe that voters should be aware of all of their voting options, I invited the following people to this program. Burt Jones, Republican candidate for lieutenant governor, no response. Chris Carr, Republican candidate for attorney general, no response. Jen Jordan, Democratic candidate for attorney general. She has other commitments. Bee Nguyen, Democratic candidate for secretary of state, requested a different date due to commitments, possibly next broadcast on Issues and Answers. And Mike Collins, Republican candidate for 10th Congressional District, no response. And his website is for patriots only. So what the heck is that about? Now, in 2022, Georgia's midterm elections will take place on Tuesday, November 8th, 2022. Voters will choose a new legislature and all states' top executives. Georgia's 14th U.S. congressional seats and one of the 2 U.S. Senate seats are up for election. If you have not registered to vote, you must do that by tomorrow, Tuesday, October 11th. I'm going to give you some more information at the end of this program because I do want to get into my candidates. First of all, I want to introduce to you Mrs. Tabitha Johnson Green. She is a wife, a mother, a registered nurse, and a community activist. She's a graduate of Georgia Southern University, Middle Georgia College, and the Ultimate Medical Academy. She enjoys spending time with family and friends and also being an activist. She is also enjoys visiting many Georgia U-Pick farms, I do too, and picking fresh fruits and vegetables. She has been a registered nurse for over 20 years, and she deeply cares about the welfare and well-being of everyone, especially those in the Georgia's 10th congressional district. Now, she entered politics for the same reason that she became a nurse, so that she can help people on a larger scale. In 2018, she took a leap of faith and ran for Congress. She won the Democratic nomination by becoming the first African-American woman to win such a distinction since redistricting in 2010. Next, I'd like to introduce Mrs. Nakita Hemingway. Mrs. Hemingway is an entrepreneur, a political leader, a realtor, a cut flower farmer. Now she is running for Georgia's next Commissioner of Agriculture to ensure our agricultural legacy becomes our launch point toward a future where we all thrive. She is a Georgia native. She lives in Tacoma, Georgia. She is an active member of the Democratic Party of Georgia, the Federation of Democratic Women, the Georgia Farm Bureau, the Association of Specialty Cut Flower Growers, Women in Agribusiness, the Federation of Southern Cooperatives and Land Trust, the National Association of Realtors, and she serves on the board of Open Arms Group. That's a nonprofit organization dedicated to serving the needs of women and children in underserved communities. There is so much more, but I really want to get my candidates here to talking. I'd like to start off with Mrs. Nakita Hemingway. If you could give us a little background on yourself, your goals, and just what you're inspired to.
Yes. So first and foremost, thank you for sharing your platform with me today. It is truly an honor to be here with you. And secondly, you did an amazing job of kind of telling my experience and my qualifications in this space. But I am a 5th generation farmer. I'm also a former corporate executive, and I am passionate about bringing change here to the state of Georgia. My political journey began 4 years ago when a local county commissioner stood on my farm and told me I would be better off selling my land to Quick Trip than getting him to remove his restrictions. So my decision to run for office wasn't because I wanted to be a politician. It was simply because I understood the equity in agriculture problem, and I'm the most qualified person to solve this. My grandparents were rice farmers off of the coast of the Savannah River. And for more than 100 years, my family owned 360 acres, and now we own none of it. I was a single mother long before of 2, let me clarify, long before I was a married mother of 4. And to become the success that I have became, I took the pathway of entrepreneurship. And I tell my story because what I feel is missing from politics in 2022 is ethical leadership. And it is important for voters to understand the character of the man or the character of the woman who is stepping up to support and championing all those causes that we say we want to see in this world. I heard you mention Burt Jones and a few other insurrectionists, but my opponent, Tyler Harper, was in Washington, D.C. on January 5th and 6th. I believe that's important for voters to know. He supported Texas lawsuit against the state of Georgia when we had proven that our elections were free and fair, and there wasn't, fraud or any voter suppression or cheating. And, now we have farmers throughout the state of Georgia who are suffering in silence from some of the bad bills he's passed. Senate Bill 260, which is a soil amendment bill, took away the powers of local county commissioners to be able to fight for their communities, and it empowered chicken processing plants to be able to take their industrial waste and spread it amongst Georgia property owners and farmland. and it's environmental catastrophe that is happening in real time. He also supported the Freedom to Farm bill. He voted yes for that bill, which not only created opportunities for these bad actors to continue to commit these crimes, but also prevented them from being prosecuted or held accountable for their actions. So it is important that this election cycle, we do our best to to educate voters around all the issues that are on the ballot, because it's not just, hey, what's going to happen in 4 years. This is our democracy. This is opportunities to rebuild rural parts of Georgia, to bring the relief that we need. We are about to have the greatest food crisis that we will likely see during our lifetime. And if we don't have adequate leadership, the people of Georgia are going to be in trouble. So I'm just really excited to have this conversation, and I look forward to what we can do in the next 3 weeks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. We'll get back to you. And Mrs. Tabitha Johnson-Green, if you would like to do the same for us.
Okay. I am a Democratic pro-choice woman running to represent Georgia's 10th congressional district. My platforms are first and foremost protection of our rights as voters. I believe that our vote is our voice, and everyone deserves equal access to the ballot box. Also, that is being under attack by the Republicans. They are actively trying to suppress our vote. So everyone needs to come out and vote, because there is strength in numbers. Also, healthcare reform. Our hospitals are closing at alarming rates. As a matter of fact, the hospital just closed in Atlanta. And with another expected to close here in the near future. So that's one of the concerns too, is healthcare access. We all deserve access to quality, affordable healthcare in our own communities. And also education reform. The way things are now with education is that people go to school and their student loans are way out past that. So I'm glad that President Biden has made some leeway on that by initiating the debt forgiveness. And so it's just very crucial that people are afforded a good quality of life. And I think education can do that. And also, I want to remind the voters that no one is going to work harder than me to represent the needs and interests of the people of Georgia District 10. I have literally walked out of a pair of shoes, knocking on doors, trying to spread the word about the campaign and encouraging others to vote.
I just would like to add for the benefit of both of you that part of the impetus for my having this broadcast was listening to Georgia Gang on the Fox network. And one of the things that was brought up is that you two really weren't getting the acknowledgement and the push by media and other people. And I wanted to at least be a part of changing that trend. So I'm going to be throwing a couple of questions at you. There'll be no gotcha questions, but just a few. One of the things that I learned, and I'm directing this to Mrs. Hemingway, is that agriculture, which most people do not know, and that's why this is important, is our state's #1 industry. Oops, you're muted. I'm sorry.
Here we go. So
Yeah.
one in 7 jobs throughout the state of Georgia is directly tied to agriculture. And this department really, even though it's named Department of Agriculture, it really should be named Department of Everything, because it governs so much that impacts every decision the people of Georgia make in every aspect of their lives, from grocery stores to fuel pumps to our manufactured foods, locally grown foods. It also oversees our companion animals and pet care. And it's just so much. And Department of Consumer Affairs is under this department. So it is important that if we are going to lean into how do we build Georgia's economy for the next generation, we must do all that we can to ensure that we protect our #1 industry. The average farmer in the state of Georgia is 58, 59 years old. So, attracting the next generation of farmers is at the top of that list. Currently, the Department of Agriculture has an outdated website. Communications from this department is fragmented. How do we move forward and say, innovation has a place in this space? So these are all the things that I think about when I, look towards becoming the leader of this division for the next 4 years. And I have a plan to address all of those things and more. Historically in the state of Georgia, the GOP has done a fine job of protecting the big interests in the pockets of big ag corporations by neglecting small family farms, socially disadvantaged farms, farms that are held by veterans and even farm workers. And I think we need to change that. In the Georgia General Assembly, we have less than 10% of our leaders who have a property rights background, which is very vital to protecting agriculture in our farmland. So there's still so much work we have to do. And I believe that the profits we're seeing now can exponentially grow over the next couple of years if we have the right leadership at the helms.
Excellent. And I also wanted to add that, and you sort of touched on this, is that the Department of Agriculture is always in need of workers. That you don't have enough people choosing that to work in that field. And that's probably something that needs to be put out there. I know we have groups that are actively working in the schools to teach children about animal husbandry and agriculture, but we probably need a little bit more impetus on that. So thank you for that.
Yes.
Mrs. Green,
Yes.
Mrs. Green, your candidate, and he was given an invitation to be here, and he ignored it. And I'll talk about that a little bit more later. But he is an opponent. This bothers me, of critical race theory, and I always caution people that critical race theory is not taught in K through 12 schools. It is a graduate school elective.
Mm-hmm.
And people who are dealing in that area, as far as voters are concerned, are dealing in ignorance. How do you feel about that?
Well, first of all, before I answer that question, I would like to thank you for shedding light on our campaigns and giving us the media coverage that we deserve. Media coverage has been an ongoing problem since I first ran in 2018. So I'm so thankful to you and grateful to you for having this forum for us to speak.
Thank you.
In regards to critical race theory, I feel like we all deserve to know our history, and our history should be taught at the grade school level because it's important. In order for us not to repeat the mistakes of the past, we must know our history. And I have heard that the critical race theory is more of a law school subject too.
Yes.
That people that are in law school are learning about the critical race theory. So I feel like we do need to do a better job of educating our grade school kids.
I think part of what that is they're using critical race theory, and these are people who have a very shallow knowledge of the problem. But what they're doing is they're trying to eliminate actual Black history. We call it Black history. It's really American history. Mm-hmm. And they want to rewrite or erase a significant part of American history, and that's sad. I was aware of Ms. Hemingway that and you touched on this a little bit, how extensive the Department of Agriculture is and how little publicity goes out about that, and that your department will touches so many different areas. We talked about the fact that 1 in 7 jobs are dependent on the agriculture industry, but the Department of Agriculture really has a huge responsibility in Georgia.
Yes, very much so. In many ways, this also serves as the Office of Rural Economic Development,
Mhm.
because many of the initiatives that are needed to support these rural communities, those resources come through the Department of Agriculture. There's been a lot of discussion about the needs of historically disadvantaged farmers and the fact that USDA have committed billions of dollars to supporting these farmers. But on the other side of that, many of these farmers are not getting the support they need. And I need to, for people to really understand that this is not just about Black farmers. This is about veteran farmers. This is about small family farms. This is about women-owned farmers. I mean, the gambit of socially disadvantaged people in the state of Georgia, it is huge. It is the majority of farmers. And we still have farmers who were promised relief and still have not gotten aid money from Hurricane Michael. That happened, several years back. So when I am elected to this position, what I want to do is pass programs and ensure that we have funds to support all of these farmers so that we are cultivating the very best in locally grown foods, and we're getting Georgia grown products on the tables of Georgia's families and our school lunches. It's very important to ensure that our children have access to high quality and nutrient dense foods, because the math and the science is there. And it is proven that the first step to pulling someone out of poverty and changing their life circumstances starts with proper nutrition. Many of the illnesses that we're fighting against, and we talk about the loss of hospitals throughout the state of Georgia and the need for medical expansion, but many of the illnesses we are dealing with starts with having a proper diet. So agriculture is vital to Georgia. Those resources are vital to Georgia farmers and all people in so many ways. And again, if we don't have the right people sitting in these positions who are willing to do the work in an unbiased way and make sure that everyone is profitable and successful, the people of Georgia are going to continue to suffer.
I'm going to throw this out for both of you, because again, I mentioned the fact that it's been very difficult to even hear about either of you two candidates as far as the media goes, and I'm wondering if that's planned, if there's something behind that. I hate to do this, but to say this, but as I mentioned earlier, I invited a lot of candidates to come on, particularly those people who are competing against you two, and I basically ignored. And my feeling is that the elections and Mrs. Hemingway, I'm thinking you can testify to this, sometimes come down to a very small amount of votes that you can lose by. So when people tend to ignore us, that means they really don't want our vote. And that's why I thank you, both of you, for the courage to come out here and for the willingness to come out here and throw your thing down here and let the public know exactly where you're coming from. But on the real here, there is a demographic issue here in the state of Georgia, where a lot of times people are voting based on race, and that's sad. But it's a very real issue in Georgia. The demographic for the population is 60.2% white, and the average in the United States is 73.6. But African Americans are 30.9% here in Georgia, versus 12.6 in the United States. So does that, how severely does that impact your message in getting out your message?
So ironically, and I just speak the truth. And the truth is that when I qualified for my race, there were Blacks and whites who didn't think I was qualified on both sides of the aisle. So that, number one, needs to be established. And so my primary victory in actually speaking to people helped create a shift for my race. But secondly, I would say here in the state of Georgia, our bigger issue is more of the partisan divide than the racial divide. Because we have Democrats, we have both Republican and Democrats who are made up of all races, Black, white, Asian, Hispanic. They sit on both sides of the aisle. And seats like this particular one, agriculture and the needs of this department are truly nonpartisan. And one day we really should push for nonpartisan elections in this seat, because the reality is we all need food to live. No one is above that. Every family needs to be able to get proper foods at an affordable cost. Our farmers, regardless of where you are in the state, what you grow in or produce, you should have the resources to not only run your business efficiently, but actually become profitable. Georgia is the 10th largest exporting state in the nation. We have the westernmost seaports on the eastern seaboard. We can make a lot of money in the state. We have the same growing climates as California. But if you have lack of vision, if you have lack of quality leadership, then you're going to have a state in which we're living in today. But we can change that. I firmly believe that. And, you know, I let people know on the campaign trail, it is my #1 goal to teach farmers to run their business like a Fortune 500 company, because you can do that. It is my vision to end childhood hunger in the state of Georgia by 2025, because we all know it's not a resource issue, it's a policy issue. We have farmers dumping out quality produce on the sides of the road every year because they can't get their products in grocery stores or on the tables of our families. So we have just got to set aside our partisan lens. And listen, I let people know my husband is a different race than I am. He is a Republican. I am a Democrat. And I share that because no one should ever have to change their values in order for this system to work justly for everybody. And regardless of the letter that is behind my name, I want them to know that I'm in this race for everybody.
I bet to hear that. And
Yes.
I go ahead, Mr. Green.
Oh, I'm sorry. You can go ahead.
No, I was just going to. I know that Mrs. Hemingway has a little time constraint, and in respect to that, would you like to make a closing statement now, or would you like to wait that later?
Yes, so it's plain and simple. You know, life is not complicated, and neither are solutions to the problem. If you don't show up and vote, chances are the other side will, and they will continue to win. But we can make change here. It's not an impossible feat. We have the right climate. We have the right members on the ballot. Tabitha Johnson Green is very well qualified. She has been fighting for the people in her community for over 4+ years. There is no reason why she shouldn't win her race. You know, Stacy is qualified. She has a vision of inclusion to fight for everyone throughout the state of Georgia and address those issues that the current governor will not. You know what I heard that made so much sense is that people are not recognizing that if Kemp wins this election cycle, this is his lame duck period, because he cannot be reelected again. So every promise that he is making, he can renege on every single one because he doesn't lose. The people need to have leaders who have something to lose in the process. Because if I don't deliver on my promises, don't reelect me, but also that impacts my character. You know, we say in God we trust in our currency. We put in God we trust in our Constitution. We've got to have faith in God, and we've got to elect people regardless of the laws around separation of church and state, which I do support. But we have got to elect people who have a heart for humanity and who will put people first in every policy decision. So, Mr. Carter, thank you so much for this opportunity and this time. Tabitha, it's always a pleasure to see you. And we really need change, not just in the state of Georgia, but in this country. And it's not going to happen if we don't get our butts to the ballot box and cast our vote for the change makers who are willing to do the hard work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Hemingway. I really appreciate your being on this program. It does my heart good. Thank you so much. And we appreciate having you. Thank you very much for your time.
And thank you for your vote of confidence. Thank you so much.
I want to go ahead,
I do
Mrs.
want to answer
Green.
that question too and speak my truth.
Sure.
My truth is I am committed to providing or trying to seek a better quality of life for everyone, regardless of race, education, or socioeconomic level. But I will say this, on both sides of the aisle, even among Democrats, there is a certain undercurrent that are really upset that I keep winning the Democratic nomination. And they are upset that an African American is winning. So they are working their best, even Democrats, some Democrats, to try to sabotage the campaign because their chosen person for the primary did not win. And that's sad to say, instead of sticking together as all Democrats.
That's sad, but we know the reason behind that, and I can get into that. I have gotten into that before, and I may get into that before the program is over. Your candidate, your competitor, Mike Collins, he's we talked about banned critical race theory. He I guess he positions you as being part of the radical left, and you want to defund the police. How do you feel about that?
Never have I said anywhere that I want to defund the police. I feel like we need a certain level of authority to be safe in our communities. So I'm not a proponent of defunding the police because we need police officers. What we do need to do is a better job of weeding out those police officers who are violent towards minorities. So we do need a better screening process, but I'm not in favor of defunding the police because we need those vital services.
And thank you very much. And I know you brought up, and you know, as a congressperson, your plate's going to be full. And one of the things that we're that's a big concern of Georgia voters and voters nationally are secure elections. And although in honesty, there has not been a problem with elections in the past, as far as integrity of our elections, the Republican Party is promoting that. And what is your feeling on this bogus message that the Republican Party is putting out? And I'm not saying that because I'm backing Republic or Democrats or anything like that. They have an opportunity to speak, they refuse to speak. So I'm throwing in your ball court.
Okay. So can you repeat the actual question?
Yeah, about voter suppression, voting rights, and the integrity of our elections.
I think we do need to work more closely on the passage of the John Lewis Voting Rights Act because, like I say, our vote is our voice, and it's crucial. The only way that we're going to save our democracy is by everyone having equal access to the ballot box. So voting is crucial, and access to the vote is crucial.
Yes, and how about improving the economy, 10th congressional district? I had some statistics here somewhere on the median income, which is pretty nice, but your district includes 26 counties in Georgia. A lot of people don't realize, and it's extremely diverse. I can see why you've worn out a pair of shoes. Definitely.
Yes, really.
So,
right now, after redistricting, our district now is like 18 counties. And I will say that redistricting wasn't as hard on us as people may think. Now, in my opinion, from having boots on the ground and meeting people where they are and going door to door, it's more Democratic leaning, despite what the polls may say. So I feel like we have a very good chance of winning. And yeah, it's just more Democratic leaning. So things are working in our favor.
How are you getting your message out? You say you have
social media. We're also doing a lot of canvassing. We've done some postcard parties, and just in general, going to different Democratic meetings, having different events. So that's how we're getting the word out.
Okay. Do you have, I know we're going to post it on our website, but your, just for verbally, your website for contact information for our listeners?
Our website is www.tabithaforcongress.com. That's TABITHA 4 FOR Congress.com. And we are
Excellent.
also linked in with ActBlue as well.
All right now. Okay. I want to jump back into the Second Amendment. And first of all, and I'll go back to your candidate. I wish he were here, but he has an American first agenda. And I don't think that people who don't know history understand what America first agenda really is. When you couple that with the MAGA movement, is that originated in the 1930s here in the United States, and the America First agenda was heavily influenced by Nazi sympathizers here in the United States. And we had a program almost 2 years ago about the influence of neo-Nazis or Nazis, immigrants, into the Republican Party. So that's about as un-American as you can get. And so this American First Amendment is full of agenda, is actually full of racism as far as I'm concerned. I don't have anyone here to debate that. They refuse to debate that. But is this part of the information that you're putting out in your campaign? And I know when we deal with racism, it's like a red flag. People don't want to go there, but sometimes it is what it is.
Yeah, we have made that public, particularly on our social media page, because I feel like the Republicans are trying to take us back to Nazi Germany. They really are. They're trying to take us back to a communist society, or, a authoritarian society, and they're trying to really destroy democracy. And so that's one thing that we remind voters of as well, that, our democracy is under attack. It really is. And it's up to us to go out and vote. And that's the only way we're going to save our democracy.
Absolutely. Now we have, how do you have a plan or an opinion on how we can begin to suppress crime in our inner cities? Because that's another big issue that that's being dealt with on both a local and congressional level.
Okay. One way to suppress crime in our bigger cities, and we do have a plan on that, is meeting people where they are. I like that some police departments, especially in our district, have community days where they go out in the community and they meet the youth, and they do different activities with the youth to try to form a better relationship between the police and the public.
Fantastic. That's one. And we know that economy, and then I think you mentioned education is also an important issue, and more or less getting our public school system has really been ignored. I would say in the past 30 or 40 years. Do you have any opinions about how we can improve the educational system?
Now, with the public school educations, I do not believe in taking federal funding away from public schools and putting it into vouchers for private schools. I think all of our resources and allocations should be to funding public schools and making public schools a viable option for our kids and a viable option for educating our kids. You know, that's been a big issue in the past few years too, of how vouchers are being used, you know, from the government for private school education.
And how about healthcare?
Mm-hmm.
We have a big problem with that here in Georgia, especially in the metro Atlanta area.
Yes, and we have that problem here in the rural areas as well. Some people have to drive as far as an hour's drive just to the nearest emergency room. It's crazy, you know, the further out you get from the metro Atlanta area, how some people may not even have a primary physician in their home county. And so I think that, you know, well, I know for sure that Georgia should have expanded Medicaid. So that's why we're going to have to do a great job at electing a governor like Stacey Abrams, who will expand Medicaid, because so many people are lacking access to quality health care in their own community.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people aren't aware that there are millions of dollars, if not billions, in Medicaid funding that's sitting that we could be using, and it's a Republican agenda for in several states not to accept this money, which is kind of, and I really wish your candidates would really like hammer that home, because it's something that doesn't just affect Black people, it affects all people.
Yes, it does.
All economic levels. And it even affects the amount of healthcare facilities that we have. And you're speaking of the rural, up in rural Georgia, this really impacts those people and the people in rural areas. And I just don't think that this is hammered home enough, not talked about enough. I think it's a very, very important issue.
And see, for that money to just be sitting there in coffers, waiting for the Republicans to use it for whatever is on their agenda, is just selfish, because it shows a complete lack of disregard for helping others. Yeah,
it's worse than selfish. It's deadly, because people who can't get to proper health care die. Poor people who can't get proper health care die. That's Black and white, and it's sad that they have no plan. They have never had a plan for providing adequate health care to Americans who need it, but they will block that, and that just makes no sense. We're getting back really to almost the going home portion of our program here, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to perhaps make a closing statement, and you know, maybe something that will inspire some other questions. But if you would like to present that now, if you would like.
Okay. Well, in closing, I just want to say that no one is going to work harder than me to represent the needs and interests of the people of District 10. Please visit my website at www.tabithaforcongress.com. Also, make a donation today. You know, in order to help save our democracy, it takes tons of dollars to be competitive against this Republican machine. So make a donation today by visiting our website. And thank you so much. And just remember, together, we really can bring about a change in our community, our state, and our world.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mrs. Johnson-Quinn. You can stay with us. I just have a few closing comments. You don't have to run right now, but as always, I get into my little rant usually before or after the program, and I wanted to give you candidates an opportunity. I'd like to say one more time that personally, I want the Issues and Answers program to provide information on all candidates running, regardless of race, regardless of political affiliation. And I think it's awful, absolutely awful, that candidates that you're competing with refuse to, or they are very selective in whom they would like to, what programs like to participate in. because they all want an easy ride.
Mhm.
And that's sad, and that's why I wanted to give you an opportunity to be on this program, you and Mrs. Hemingway. But I just
Yes.
like to close out by saying the following: that voting matters. Now, we're being inundated with hundreds of times each day with television commercials for candidates running for office. In case you have not done your research, let me clue you into a fact. Most of these commercials contain either lies or exaggerations. I am so thankful that I took a class in critical thinking at Temple University. It opened my eyes as to how these commercials are presented in such a way that they appeal to people who are either too lazy to listen or carefully pay attention to recent facts. We had candidates on this program today presenting themselves, presenting facts, answering questions, offering ideas. This is what you want. But you can rise above. Candidates are often trained in how to dodge questions. Nobody dodged any questions here today. But you can rise above that by paying attention to news stories, current events. All of us must become educated voters. That's the impetus for this program. You must learn to stop granting your votes to a special political party all the time, because that is the way you have, and you do that because, well, I've always voted for Democrats or I've always voted for Republicans. That means you're not thinking. And we had people today on this program with Issues and Answers talking about the need to look into people's character, look into their work ethic, look into their background. What is their track record? What have they done for their communities, for their coworkers, for their schools, and other activities? Now, most of today's voters are not aware that until the late 20th century, that was around 1965, the Democratic Party was the party of segregation and the party that voted against civil rights and voting rights. The Democratic Party at that time was controlled by the Southern Dixiecrats of the Bible Belt. These Dixiecrats migrated to the Republican Party, and the Bible Belt became known as evangelicals. In addition, and we talked about this earlier, you have learned that on this program, that former German Nazi leaders immigrated to the United States and infiltrated the Republican Party. Many of these Germans committed war crimes. This is not my opinion. It really isn't. I know some of you would like to think that. This is fact. It has been documented in newspapers and in books. But if you don't read and become an educated voter, you don't know this. What is most important to know is that you need to vote for sincere, competent people whose agenda or platform closely matches your needs or concerns. Because there are not perfect people, there are not perfect political parties. Yeah, you're going to need to look at party agendas. That's important. But you also need to look at the people who are running. And today, again, we've had Mrs. Nakita Hemingway and Mrs. Tabitha Johnson Green here exposing themselves to you in a grand and glorious way. And I told you earlier, we've had other candidates who received the same request on the same day that these candidates received requests from me, and they chose not to respond. And a couple of them cannot even be reached by only certain people, and that's a shame. I want to reemphasize Mrs. Tabitha Johnson Green's website, which is www.tabitha for Congress. You can donate today. That's www.tabitha for Congress. And in closing, I'd like to just say one thing. I went to a presentation at the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra. It's about 3 weeks ago now. Very, very good show and program. And part of the program was a reading was a symphony that was composed for a reading of the writings of James Baldwin. And I'm sure some of you probably know who he is. He's one of the writing icons of my life.
Yes, he is.
And one of the statements made in that that I gleaned from it that I thought was so important, and this was all put to music, but it says the following: when power translates itself into tyranny, it means that the principles on which that power depended and which were its justification are bankrupt. I want you to think about that when we think about the insurrection. I'll repeat this again. When power translates itself into tyranny, it means that the principles on which that power depended and which were its justification are bankrupt. When this happens, and it is happening now, power can only be defended by thugs and mediocrities and seas of blood. That's James Baldwin from No Name in the Street. Now, I bring this out because we've seen bloodshed generated and supported by the Republican Party. And this Republican Party that we see now is not the traditional Republican Party that I knew 20 years ago. It has totally changed from that. And what we have is, and I want to get your opinion on this, Ms. Green. What we have now is an offshoot of that. It's particularly heavily influenced by the Tea Party, which we don't talk about anymore. But these are radical people who want to overthrow our way of life to the negative. They're not talking about anything to improve. The whole thing with border control, southern borders, the whole thing with everybody who comes across the southern border is demonized as being criminal, where nobody's talking about the people that fly into the LaGuardia Airport in New York, or the people that come in from Canada. So, Ms. Green, if you can unmute yourself, do you have any opinion on that? Because this immigration issue and this border issue with the Republican Party is something that you're going to have to deal with in Congress.
Yes, and that brings me around to how some of these governors are just busing immigrants to different states. That's awful. You've heard of that, hadn't you?
I certainly have.
Where they're busing the immigrants to the different states. But I firmly believe, and I hate too, that there have been restrictions placed on the DACA program, because I feel like the DACA program is very important and crucial to helping immigrants obtain their citizenship. So there needs to be a clearer path to citizenship for immigrants in the United States. And I feel like the way the immigrants are being treated now is very unfair, very harsh, and that should not be so.
Yeah, this is not the way that the immigrants from Ireland were treated when they fled Ireland from the potato famine, or when the Italians came here in the late 19th and early 20th century, fleeing poverty and murder. This is not the way that they were treated. And that little writing, or the doctor on the Statue of Liberty, bring me you're tired, you're poor, people struggling, yearning to be free, seems to not apply to this America First MAGA movement. And I wish that everyone listening to this program would look up America First. Everything is available online, and see what this is all about. And you know, the whole MAGA movement with the red hats, with the writing, those are symbolic of what happened in the late 19th century with the red shirts that populated North Carolina and resulted in the coup of 1898, where they basically ran thousands of African Americans out of Wilmington, North Carolina, and threw the ones in office out of office. And when you see those red MAGA hats, think about the red shirts. And when you hear America First movement, think about the American Bund, B-U-N-D. Look it up. Totally un-American. Well, it has been great. I know sometimes I get a little wordy here and I run off, but vote. I want to give you more information on voting, that you need to get out and vote. The elections are, the deadline for registering to vote is tomorrow, Tuesday, October 11th. You need to get on it. Early voting starts on the 17th, I do believe.
Yes, it does.
And you need to get on. You can vote by absentee ballot, but you got to put those requests in like right now.
Yes.
And if you don't get your absentee ballot in, and you don't want to participate in early voting, which I encourage everybody to do that, because if you wait until the last minute, so many things can happen. And early voting is something that the Republican Party is working to limit. And if you're going to keep this governor that we have in now and his supporters, you're going to find that in 4 years from now, early voting is going to be so limited that and ballot voting, mail-in ballots are going to be so limited that it's going to negatively impact a lot of us. So it's very, very important that you get out and vote. Please vote wisely. That's why we have this program. Vote for the candidates who best reflect what you want, what's important to you. But the one thing that you must do, folks, is you must vote. And there are people who are banking on the fact that you are frustrated and that you feel powerless, and that interprets to your not participating in the voting process. So again, I want to thank my guest for joining us and imparting a great deal of information. Really loved having you. Thank you. I'll give you my own.
Thank you.
Hand.
Thank you. And thank you for this informative conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And once you are on your way to DC, we'd like to have you back here on Issues and Answers. And we can talk about some other things and what you're going to be able to do going forward. So thank you so much for being with us for this entire hour, Mrs. Green. I'd like to thank again Mrs. Green and Mrs. Hemingway for imparting so much information. And I want to thank all of you listeners who took the time to tune in to WCEG Issues and Answers. Our next installment will be on 9/24/22. Please tune in and check us out. Until then, thank you. God bless.